Okay, so this has been one of the weirdest weeks. You've heard me talk about it. There's only one guy that I thought of this week in sorting through what has become, and I think it's largely online. Again, I've said I don't think it's largely this audience, but because I spend a fair amount of time on social media, it's gotten into my brain. It's seeped in a little bit more than I care to admit. And so I decided to reach out to Ned Ryun, our great friend, founder and CEO of American Majority, who I know will tell us the dead straight truth as he sees it, author of American Leviathan. Ned, good morning. Happy Friday to you, brother.
Morning, Chris. Good to be with you.
So, Ned, there's a contingent of people on our side in my business who are telling their audiences that Donald Trump is this terrible, disappointing sellout. And there's a fair amount of that on social media. I'm sure you've seen it. I don't know how pervasive it is or even how real it is, but I want to tackle it head on with honesty, and I know that you will. So take it away.
So I think you're probably referring, well, first of all, I just go back to your opening comments. This has been an interesting last week in which you've gotten the big, beautiful bill passed, which I thought was vital for a whole host of reasons. Codified, I think it was 28 of Trump's executive orders, made his tax cuts permanent. Obviously, massive amounts of funding for border security and deportations, all of these things. And then there have been a few squirrely comments this last week about, especially coming from Brooke Rollins, who I am not a fan of, Secretary of Agriculture, regarding what I think is amnesty for farm workers. And the other thing, Chris, that I will throw in too that's kind of given me a little bit of a pause is the whole Epstein thing. I'm not even really someone that follows the whole Epstein thing. I don't know that it's in my top 20. In the last 3 days now, I have all sorts of questions, and I don't think it's been handled well. And it's not going away, despite what Trump said during the cabinet meeting, that why are we even talking about this? Well,
totally agree.
You're going to get to talk about it, and you're going to have to come up with a lot better answers. So I think the thing that's concerning me the most is that middle issue, the amnesty one. So a lot of great triumphs. Trump is not a sellout. That's absurd and ridiculous. I think that there is a bit of a struggle going on about what are we going to do with the farm workers. But I just want to make this point before we get to the next question. At the beginning of the administration, Caroline Leavitt made it very clear. First of all, we're going to start with the hardened criminals, but we consider everyone who has crossed the border illegally as having broken the law, therefore being a criminal. We will deal with those people after we deal with the hardened criminals, but we view everybody that's broken the law by crossing a border illegally as worthy of deportation. And now you are saying, Brooke Rollins, that somehow those who have broken and skirted the law, i.e. Big Ag and some of these other farms, by hiring those who have broken the law, we're somehow going to carve out amnesty. That doesn't work for me. You have to be consistent on this front and say they have all broken the law, therefore they will all be deported. And quite frankly, that's what Trump ran on, and that's what Trump gets to do.
I don't disagree with a word you said. I think my only question for you would be, do you, and this is just kind of my point of view on it, not that I'm trying to argue the point. It's just
right.
Here we are with an economy, sectors of our economy built on the backs of illegal labor. It's gross, and I wish it wasn't so. But we go to communities and take vacations in hotels, probably that are employing illegals. We go to the grocery store and we buy groceries that have probably been harvested by illegals. That's gross and unfortunate, and I wish it weren't so, but it is.
Right.
Is it not true that if you just did a mass roundup of people as fast as you could, wouldn't you see the American economy disrupted dramatically in the short order?
Well,
and I'm not excusing it. Please don't misunderstand this as excusing it. I'm just curious what you say to that.
No. Well, first of all, I would say that there's not going to be overnight mass deportations. We know that just on a rational level, Chris, that there's no way, even in looking at the last 4 years, and let's say it's 12 million that came in with Joe Biden's intentional systematic invasion. That to me is the starting number. You've got to get the 12 million out. You are not overnight deporting 12 million. I think it's a process of years. And so I think there is a transition period in which we have to, I mean, we use the term decouple from China. I think we need to start thinking about decoupling our economy from illegal immigrants doing a lot of this manual labor. So I think
Yes.
there's going to be a phase, and I do think we have a few years in there where we're going to have to start being serious about this. This is not a serious conversation if we're talking about amnesty up front for these farm workers. No, we actually have to have a legitimate approach to saying we're going to decouple from this, and there's going to be a phase out. But you don't start from we're going to have amnesty up front. That to me is an absurd starting point. I don't think Brooke Rollins fits with this administration, by the way. I don't think she's ever been on the same page in regards to immigration and deportations and all that. So I think at some point, this is just my view, she's not going to be a part of this administration.
So when Trump says no amnesty, you don't believe that? Because he said that this week. No, not amnesty. No amnesty. You don't believe him, or?
I do believe him. I think that there are some people that are trying to maybe couch it in terms that doesn't look like amnesty, but in reality it is.
Okay.
I want to see more of this plan, because when they're pushed on this, Chris, they will admit they don't actually have a concrete plan for how they're going to approach. But my other concern about this is this. If you make a carve out for farms, you're going to make a carve out for hotels, you're going to make a carve out for other things. All of a sudden, it's like nose under the tent sort of stuff. And like, where do you actually stop? Because then people will be calling and say, well, actually, my industry is built off the back. They'll admit, off illegal immigration. So at what point do you stop?
Yeah, no, and I think people would make that same argument about tariffs, right? For that matter, carving out this industry or that is. I mean, it's a nuanced thing.
Yeah, exactly.
I do want to pivot to the Epstein thing, though. So duly noted. I appreciate your point. This Epstein thing is probably even more problematic because there were a whole host of people for a very long time that were promising this very, very specific list. There's a list.
Yep.
And I keep hearing this word list, and I have done all my research to try to figure out where a list came from. Now, guys like Dershowitz have said to Sean Spicer, there's a list. He's seen the list. Trump, said, I'll declassify everything when I get to town. J.D. Vance has called for declassification. Dan Bongino, Kash Patel. I'm with you. I'm not a fan of Pam Bondi at all. I think she's a terrible messenger. I'd love to see these guys go out and just talk for 2 hours about this and answer all the questions they can answer. But here's another question I have for you again just about Trump. My take is the man was nearly killed, and I do believe, by the deep state. And now there are people who would have their audiences believe he's actively working to protect the deep state. And that is just a bridge too far for me, Ned.
It's absurd. That whole idea that is completely absurd. I do think there's something a little squirrely going on. I've been in D.C. 25 years, Chris, and I'm not always right. But when my little spidey senses are going off in the back of my head that something doesn't quite add up, that's what's happening right now on this issue. And instead of me not really caring about it, now I have all sorts of questions. But no, to say that he's not combating the deep state and he's not going to do some of this stuff. Can we go back? The other thing that happened this week that we should have mentioned, John Brennan and James Comey, investigations being opened by the FBI for their role in the Russian collusion hoax. Those guys are like poster children for the deep state. So I think there's some things that the Trump administration is trying to sort through. I do not think they're doing a very good job at it right now. But do I trust Trump? I mean, I told some of the staff when I was there in the West Wing 10 days ago, I said, listen, on the whole Iran issues, right before the whole Iran situation, I said, I trust him implicitly on a whole host of fronts. At the same time, I am going to voice concerns to make sure I can maybe push a little bit and make sure we get to the right conclusion. But I trust Trump on a whole host of reasons. For a whole host of reasons.
No, he's not. He is not going to be perfect. He's not a saint. He's not the Pope. He's not going to be perfect. He will drop the ball. He's going to screw up a message. He will. Of course he will, and has.
Can I just say this? This is the most bizarre thing to me, having been involved in politics for most of my adult life. When people go looking for perfection in a very imperfect sector of our life, in fact, every aspect of life is imperfect because we're imperfect human beings in an imperfect world. And somehow you have to be completely 100% perfect or we're not going to support you anymore. Like, Donald Trump's an imperfect human being. Do I love what he's doing? Do I love who he is as a person? Do I love the fact that he came back in one of the greatest political comebacks ever and is now having, I think, an incredible start to a second term? Not perfect, but pretty darn good. I love it. And I'm very happy with where we're headed right now. I think, again, there's a couple hurdles to overcome. I think they're going to hopefully navigate that very well and get us to a point where everybody's going to go, we love this. And the other thing, too, that I want to say, Chris, once this big, beautiful bill and the permanent tax cuts and all these things start to really, like, everything starts to fully kick in and be realized, people are going to go, man, this is an amazing, incredible time to be alive. And thank God Donald Trump ran again.
Ned Ryun, I'm so glad you're here. Because you're honest, and I'm honest. It's not about bootlicking and kissing up. Call it out. Call them as you see them. Call balls and strikes. Right. But this subversive thing now where Trump's a sellout or a deep state agent or whatever. Like, I'm so tired of it, and I think there are dishonest people that are selling that. But, Ned, I know you're not. Exactly. American Majority, please pick up American Leviathan. He has written the book about the deep state. It's an important read. And, Ned, God bless you. I'm so glad you're here today, buddy. Thank you.
For full shows, live and on demand, it's Salem News Channel.